So I have to call you back in a little bit. Bye.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming today. We're really excited to have Rachel Ivanovich with Easy Life Management here to give us a workshop on tax code overload, COVID coping. So Rachel, welcome and thank you for doing this for us today. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Hey, everybody. How are you all doing today? Hope you're all doing well. And I guess you're all muted. So I'm just gonna pretend that I'm on a phone call with you. And Kathy and I discussed a little bit earlier today how we can field questions, because I know everyone has a lot of questions. And so as we go through the slides, if you want to type your questions into the chat box, we will make sure that everyone's questions get answers. And as you know, there's just been a ton of information that's been coming at us over the last about 10 days from Congress and the IRS and Department of Labor and so on and so forth. So Kathy and I chatted about this the other day, and we just said we've got to have some sort of just an informational session that people can ask questions. And so I really thank you all for being on here today, and I hope you all are doing safe and that your families are safe. So to begin, the objective today of this workshop is to provide some hope and direction for individuals and business owners and your families, because we're all undergoing a really, really unusual season in our life and in our businesses. And I hear it ticking, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. It's stopped. Thank you. If everyone can just mute themselves, that would be really helpful. And then type in your questions into the chat box if you have any questions for us. So I'm going to go through 3 different sections today. Those sections are, first of all, help for individuals, for all of you, because I know we're all struggling right now. And it's really easy to get caught up in the gloom and doom of what's going on, but there's a lot of help. And I'm going to go through all of that. Help for you, help for your families, and for your businesses. So the second section is on help for small businesses, including nonprofits. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about tax planning and some of the new initiatives coming from the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board, the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and the Board of Equalization. And then we'll talk a little bit about tax planning. And then we'll field some questions depending on how much time we have. So it's really been overwhelming. The last about 10 days have been 3 new tax acts and or initiatives that have been put out. I've been doing taxes for 20 years. This has never happened. This is completely unprecedented. So it all started March 18th with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And then the IRS followed that up with the People First Initiative, which has really been great. And then finally on Friday, as you probably all know, and what the news has just been inundating us with, is the CARES Act, also known as the Payroll Protection Act. And as practitioners, we are so excited this finally got passed, because we've all been waited with bated breath for this to come out, because clients were calling office asking us 1,000,006 questions about this, and we were busy doing tax returns, and we're just hoping that the act passed so we didn't give you any erroneous information. My advice to you is, if you want information, I know the media is really trying to be helpful, but I don't find it very helpful when they're giving out information that's not true. So my biggest source is always irs.gov, and they have a special tile. If you click on it, it is coronavirus. It gives you up-to-date information. It will help you keep your facts straight. And same with the Franchise Tax Board, ftb.ca.gov. If you go to that website, they update it daily. And they have a newsroom. You can go there, click on the coronavirus updates so that you have the most current information from both tax agencies. So let's just start with help for individuals. So the big topic that everybody has been talking about is stimulus payments, or economic impact payments is what the IRS are calling them. So what you have to keep in mind is that these are advance payments for a 2020 tax credit. So we'll go into those in just a minute. But the other help for individuals that have been passed with these three initiatives and acts are, there's been student loan relief, mandatory paid sick leave, which I talked about on my webinar last week or Zoom call last week, and expanded family and medical leave. Unemployment benefits were added on Friday, reprieve from negative credit reporting, and then also some foreclosure relief and some related evictions for tenants. So to start with stimulus payments, the things that you really need to know, and the IRS has a really great Q&A. You may want to check those out, read through those. At the very top, they update it every single day. If you go to irs.gov, it will tell you they don't have any information about when the checks are going to be mailed, other than maybe in 3 weeks. People are asking what they need to do. You don't have to do anything as long as you filed your 2018 or 19 tax return. Basically, everyone is eligible for these stimulus payments, and I'm sure the news has given you the numbers, the amounts that you'll be potentially getting. The payments are $1,200 for individuals and $2,400 for married couples. If you have dependents that are under the age of 17, that's an additional $500. These credits, they do phase out. And what that means is if you earn over a certain amount, you won't get the full amount and you may not get it at all. So if, let's just say that your 2018 income was higher than your 19, you'll get a partial credit now mailed to you or direct deposited to you. And then when you file next year, 2020, you'll get the remainder if your income does go down. So this is a 2020 tax credit, which is different than, and I believe that if we can all remember back to, I think it was 2008 or 9 when the other recession hit, there were advanced credits that went out to people. And if you didn't get the full amount one year, you get the remainder the next year. People are asking me how and when will I get my payment? So basically, like I said, if you filed a 2018 tax return, you can expect it in about 2 to 3 weeks. It is the government, they're scrambling as fast as they can. So I would just be patient and eventually it'll come in the mail. If you had a direct deposit on your last year's tax return, which is either 2018 or 19, whatever banking information that you used on that tax return, that's what they're going to be using. They are working on a portal, a web portal, so that you can log on and put in your banking information. If, for instance, you owed money last year and you want a direct deposit, it will be quicker for you to get your advance payment, your stimulus payment, if you log into this new site. It is not available yet, but we will be updating everyone on our website and also be sending out e-blasts to update clients and other friends and family who want to know this information. People want to know how long that it will be available to get this payment, and that is through the end of the year. And then next year, when you're filing your 2020 return, if you haven't gotten the advance payment, you'll get your payment next year when you file your 2020 tax return. So my tip is there are some people that maybe you know who haven't filed a tax return for 2018 or 19. Maybe you have an elderly aunt or a grandmother who receives just Social Security or doesn't have a filing requirement. Maybe you know someone who doesn't file a tax return at all. If they file a return for 2018 or 19, they will be eligible for this payment, even if they didn't have income. The IRS is coming up with a way to file a simple return so that everyone will be eligible for this. So just stay tuned. We're going to be posting information about how to receive this advance payment, even if you haven't filed a return for 18 or 19. Student loan relief. So under the CARES Act, which was passed Friday, all student loan payments will be suspended through September 30th. They should not accrue interest. They're saying that's automatic, but I don't necessarily believe them. So I would suggest that you contact your student loan provider, reach out to friends, reach out to family. I know that there are a lot of young people that have really high student loan payments. Please let them know that this is available, that this relief is available, and have them contact their student loan provider. Also, if students are going to be having their employers, if they're working still and the employer is paying for their student loans, they're not going to have to pay income tax on that. And it has been subject to tax in the past. So this is a really huge benefit for them. There's some other emergency relief provisions that are available. It was passed in the CARES Act, which was Friday. I don't have a lot of information on that, but I do know that that is coming because a lot of students were sent home. Most of students were sent home from university. And because of the impact of them being sent home, clearly we're asking, are we getting some of the tuition back, and so on and so forth. So just be patient, that information is forthcoming. So the mandatory paid sick leave and family leave benefits, this is what will be very helpful to you and your families. There's a flip side for the employer as well. I did go into this in a little bit more detail last week. This was part of the Families First Act. And basically, the Families First Act provided two different types of mandated employer benefits. The first is sick leave. And so this is in addition to any state mandated sick leave already. And so this is an additional 80 hours of paid sick leave for workers. Pretty much anyone who has to be at home and who can't telework. But employers that have fewer than 500 employees are mandated to pay this sick leave. If you are a smaller employer, and you work for a company that has less than 50 employees, there's an exemption for that. The other type of leave benefits that are now available are up to 12 weeks of paid family leave benefits, and they are subject to caps. I put those down at the bottom of the slide. So it's basically what you make for the day when you were working, up to $511 per day for 10 days. And then after those first 2 weeks, then you're eligible for the paid family leave benefits of up to $200 per day. Nonprofit employees are eligible for this as well. So just keep that in mind and talk with your employer. If they want to talk with us, we're happy to chat with them about what the rules are about these employer leave benefits. We received a lot of phone calls the last couple of weeks, lots of texts from clients wondering about unemployment benefits. We have a lot of clients who are self-employed, and so we were waiting for the CARES Act to pass, which it did on Friday. So the CARES Act actually expanded unemployment benefits to include independent contractors and freelancers. I'm not exactly sure how this is all going to roll out. However, I have been checking up with the EDD. They also have a center on their website to deal with this. So I put the website on the slide there. You can also call the North County Coastal Career Center. That's the first number, 760-631-6150, and they will be able to help you, as well as the EDD. They also have a phone number. I would expect that you would have to wait for a long time on hold, so you may want to check out their website first. They do have an online portal for you to apply for unemployment benefits. And under the CARES Act, the government is going to be subsidizing California unemployment with an additional $600 per week for up to 4 months. And typically the California unemployment benefits were only for 26 weeks, and these have been extended to 39 weeks under the CARES Act. The quickest and easiest way to access unemployment benefits or apply for them is to set up a UI online account. I did put the DE form there. It is a PDF. You may want to download that and take a look at how to apply for unemployment benefits. Another part of the CARES Act that is helpful for families and individuals is the provision, the reprieve for negative credit reporting. So basically, if you have to skip or defer any of your payments, credit card payments, and so on during this time period, the CARES Act basically states that any of the missed payments will be not shown on your credit report, that you will be shown as current, so that your credit scores will not be impacted negatively. My advice is to reach out to the credit card companies to waive fees and to remind them of this, this law that has been passed March 27th, part of the CARES Act. They're so busy, I'm sure, right now, so it wouldn't, I think it's definitely worthwhile for you to take some action and to give them a call. The next part of the CARES Act is has to do with paying your mortgage and paying rent. So it does include a provision for borrowers that have federally backed mortgages. Basically, we've all been harmed by this outbreak, and so I think that everyone definitely will be able to take advantage of this. So as of March 18th, your mortgage companies, your lenders cannot initiate a foreclosure proceeding. So I would definitely check in with your lender. I just received an email from Chase today about my mortgage. So do in fact reach out there. I'm sure scrambling, as are all the other businesses and agencies and families and so on, trying to keep up with all of these new provisions and laws that they need to comply with. So give them a little bit, just grant them, just be patient with everyone. It's been crazy the last 10 days and a couple of months. There is an eviction provision for renters. So for 120 days after the CARES Act passed, which was Friday, renters cannot be evicted so long as their lender, their landlord has a mortgage with a which is federally backed. So do check in with your landlord because I've had a lot of phone calls, texts, and so on, questions about relief for rent. They, at this point, cannot charge late fees under the law. There will be some additional guidance forthcoming. We do not have any at this time, but I would absolutely suggest that you check in with your landlord about this and keep your eyes on the irs.gov for more information on this. As part of the People First initiative, which was passed by the IRS on March 25th, there will be no liens or levies or and there will be a suspension on existing installment agreements. What this means is if you currently have a payment plan in place with the IRS, they will not, if you're on a direct debit, they will not be taking money out of your bank account until after July 15th. Also, if you had additional taxes owed and you had an existing agreement in place, your agreement will not default until after July 15th. This may be extended. If you were planning on applying for a new installment agreement, I would suggest going online, irs.gov payments. You can still set up agreements online. The IRS is continuing to operate just their mission critical operations. What that means is they are accepting tax returns, they are processing refunds. However, their service centers are all closed down. I can't get through on my practitioner line at this time. So any new notices that you receive, there's really not a lot we can do with those as practitioners. I would continue to say if you do receive a notice from the Franchise Tax Board or from the IRS, be sure that you send this off to your tax advisor. They will want to see it. However, there will be no new liens and levies during this time period, and there will be no additional field office or correspondence audits that will take place during this time. Thank goodness. So moving on to help for small businesses, including nonprofits. So the big question has been around the potentially forgivable emergency loans. Received a lot of questions about those the last few weeks. The Carlsbad Chamber sent out a really great PDF. I believe it was Thursday or Friday of last week. If you haven't read through that, I would highly advise that you do take a look at that. It was put out by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I believe. Really good information. So I would definitely check into that. I'm also going to touch on the 2020 payroll tax deferral for small businesses, the payroll tax credit that will be available, the employer credits that are available, that we're calling it the child care leave credit because this is the other half of the sick leave and paid family leave that was passed under the Families First credit. And then if you haven't paid your $800 yet for 2020, that has been deferred. You don't need to pay that until at least July 15th. And as well as any other business payments. I'm also going to touch on the EDD work sharing program that's available as we get towards the end of the small business slides. So let's talk about emergency loans. And I'm sure everybody's trying to apply for these if you haven't already. So a big question I'm getting is who can apply? So basically anyone with a small business, or corporations, nonprofit, which have the 501c3 status with fewer than 500 employees. If you have a hospitality business, which is a restaurant, hotel, etc., you can treat each of your locations as separate businesses for these loans. Also, individuals that operate as sole proprietors can apply, as well as self-employed and independent contractors. So basically, your business must have been in operation before February 15th, 2020, and have had employees or paid independent contractors. Next question people are asking me is, when can I apply for this emergency loan? So basically there's the SBA disaster loan that's out there that is already available, but there are going to be quite a few other banks that will be processing these emergency loans. Should be soon. Keep your eyes on irs.gov. SBA will also have information available regarding these loans. So basically these loans, they must be taken out before June 30th of 2020. And there are going to be some special provisions allowed that allow for express loans up to $1 million with fast tracking approval within 36 hours. I'm getting questions about how much that people can borrow, how much they can take. So basically this loan, this emergency loan, will be capped at the lesser of 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs, or $10 million. So this is available again for employers and for sole proprietors or self-employed individuals. So for employers, it's the sum of payments for any compensation with respect to your employees. So if you're an S corporation, I've gotten this question, I'm S Corp, it's just me. I pay myself a W-2, can I get this? Absolutely. It also includes health insurance and other benefits. For sole proprietors and self-employed individuals, you also can qualify for this. And it's basically the sum of payments that you will be taking that you did take that were your net earnings. So the next question people are asking, are these loans going to be forgiven? And the answer is potentially yes. So if you use the emergency loan for eligible expenses, which are listed below, during the 8-week period after the loans begins, then the amount of the loan principal can be forgiven tax-free. So it's going to be a little bit complicated how it works because typically when you have debt forgiveness, that is considered income for tax purposes, and you'll receive a tax form. The IRS is working on that to come up with some sort of form so that can be excluded from income under these circumstances. So your eligible expenses are payroll costs, and these are on salaries that your business pays up to $100,000 per employee, also including your health insurance premiums and state and local payroll taxes. So how this applies for sole proprietors or self-employed individuals is if your net income on your Schedule C is over $100,000, that's not excludable because it's right in line with what small businesses have to do with salaries up to $100,000. Also, interest payments on your mortgages if you own your building is considered an eligible expense. If you prepay your mortgage or pay principal, that doesn't count. If you have a rental agreement and you pay utilities for your business, these are also considered eligible expenses. You did have to have a lease agreement in place before February 15th of 2020 for these to be considered eligible expenses. So the loan forgiveness is reduced if you reduce your full-time equivalent employees. That's a whole definition that I'm not going to get into on this webinar today. But this does include cutting hours during the covered period or reducing compensation of your employees during this period, the 8-week period after you get this loan, this emergency loan. If you do cut hours or you cut their compensation, you can rehire them and reinstate wages by June 30th in order for the loan still to be forgiven. This is basically a payroll protection. They want you to keep your employees. So if you don't make any further cuts by 30 days after the passage of the act, which was March 27th, then your eligible expenses should be able to be forgiven under the CARES Act. If it's not forgiven, or if you've borrowed an amount that's over the eligible expenses, you have between 6 months to a year to repay the loans. The interest rate will be capped at 4%, and the maximum loan maturity is 10 years from the date that you apply for the forgiveness. If you pay it early, there are no prepayment penalties, which I thought was also cool. So some things for you to consider are that originally they said there that it had to be backed with collateral. At this time, under the CARES Act, no collateral or personal guarantees are required. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals, as I mentioned before, are all eligible under this program. And if you do have an economic injury disaster loan with the Small Business Administration already, you can refinance it into this other program, but you can't have both loans at the same time to cover the same expenses. So I put a couple of links up, uschamber.com/CO. I think that's the 4-page document that the Carlsbad Chamber sent out, which is really helpful. It will explain the loans in more detail. They've got some fun little graphics if you're into that. And there's going to be a lot of guidance coming soon from the SBA, and just stay tuned. There's more to come. I think we all need to take a breath. That was more of a note for myself. So payroll tax deferral. So if you do not take advantage of the forgivable loan that I was talking about above, you can potentially defer part of your payroll taxes. And I put there in all caps because, as you know, if you pay payroll taxes as a small business owner, you remit both halves of the payroll tax, the employer half and the employee half. So you still have to send in the employee tax timely. However, you can defer your portion as the employer until December 31st, 2021, and the other half in December 2022. So that should help out with cash flow a bit. Under the CARES Act, there is a wonderful credit called the Employee Retention Credit. And if you haven't gotten the gist already, they really, really want you to keep your employees. They're trying to make it possible for you to keep everyone on payroll. So employers are eligible who do not take advantage of the forgivable loan mentioned above, but are partly shut down due to the mandatory orders, or have just generally experienced a decline of 50% or more in your gross receipts as compared to last year. So this and some people are calling it employer retention credit. The amount of the credit is 50% of qualified wages of each employee that you have. And qualified wages are capped at $10,000 per employee for a max credit of $5,000 to be applied against payroll taxes. It is refundable, meaning if you don't have enough payroll tax, it will be refunded to you in the form of cash. This does apply to wages that you pay between March 12th and December 31st. And like I mentioned, it is applied against your employment taxes, which is that Social Security, Medicare, and so on. So the employer credits, this was a credit that was passed under the Families First Act, which was March 18th. And this is the other half of the mandatory sick pay and mandatory paid family leave. If you are paying this for your employees, this would be that 80-hour for 10 days for sick leave and up to 12 weeks for paid family leave benefit that the employee gets. You as the employer may claim dollar for dollar refundable credit against your payroll taxes. for the leave that you're paying your employees. So keep in mind, instead of remitting all your payroll taxes, you're going to retain the amount that typically you would send in to the government, which is equal to the amount of the sick leave. And you will use it to pay any other bills or expenses that you have. So the amount of payroll tax that you will be retaining, the calculation is a little bit complicated. They're still figuring out how to do it, but there will be more. I'll be presenting more on how that will be calculated. If you have a payroll company, they will help you with that. So don't be alarmed, and we might all need to take another breath right now. So the taxes that you will be able to retain are federal income tax withholding, Social Security, and Medicare, both sides, employee and employer. And self-employed individuals, there is something in this bill as well for you. You do not file 941s for yourself. So if it's just you and you're just the only one in business by yourself, you will want to take a look at what your estimated tax payments, your quarterly payments are, and decrease those and adjust those for the amounts that you would have taken in sick pay for yourself. More on that later. So finally, there's another program. If any of these other benefits don't seem like they will apply to you or your business, the EDD has come out with a work sharing program. I put a link here for that for more information. It's basically an alternative to laying off employees because, as you know, it costs a lot of money to retain employees and to train employees and so on. So this is an alternative that helps you keep your employees on staff and basically get your business back up and running quickly when the conditions improve. So definitely check out that link, edd.ca.gov/unemployment/working_sharing_program.htm. I have a few clients who are utilizing this, and the application was not too difficult. So finally, coming to our last section on tax planning and retirement planning. We're going to talk about the extended 2019 tax filing and payment deadline. We're going to talk about some retirement planning and some of the things that have changed there. And then we're going to chat a little bit about charitable giving and basically just the state of our businesses. So first of all, as you know, potentially, hopefully, the tax day has been extended to July 15th. There's nothing for you to file April 15th this year. There's nothing for you to pay April 15th of this year. This applies to both businesses and individuals that had filing deadlines of April 15th. So if you had a deadline of March 15th, so for instance, S corporations, this does not apply to you. Hopefully you're all on extension already. However, like I mentioned before, the $800 that's typically due April 15th is not due until July 15th. So the new deadline, July 15th, just put that everywhere so you can remember when to reach out to your tax advisor, wink, wink, to file and pay your income tax. So a little bit confusing are the estimated tax payment because the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board have different due dates. So for the IRS, your second quarterly estimate is due before your first quarterly estimate. I've heard rumors that first, second, and third quarterly estimates will all be due in October, but I don't know that for sure. I checked the IRS website before this webinar, and they still are saying that your April quarterly estimate is due July 15th, and that your second quarterly estimate is due June 15th. So just keep your eyes open. I'll be sending out more information about due dates for quarterly estimates. For the Franchise Tax Board, they made it simple. Both your April and June, so your first and second quarter estimates, they're due July 15th. So just they're keeping everything simple, includes your $800 payment. Just keep that July 15th date in mind. To stay in line with all of the other July 15th deadline, the IRS did say that IRA and HSA contributions can be made through July 15th as well. And if you file a FBAR form, which is basically if you have foreign bank accounts, that has also been extended, so you don't need to worry about filing April 15th to make sure that your FBAR is also included in that. Just a note for everyone, if you are due a refund, the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board are processing returns still. So tax advisors, I have a lot of friends who are tax advisors, and they are all working madly to get everyone their money as fast as possible. And we want to help you. We really want to help you. So my tip is please be nice and patient with your tax advisor, because that was just a shameless plug for my fellow tax practitioners. So under the CARES Act, there's a provision for required minimum distributions being waived. So anyone who typically has to pull money out of IRAs, that required minimum distribution has been waived. You do not have to take it this year. However, there is a great planning opportunity for a lot of people on fixed income. So you may want to just let them know this might be an opportunity. And there's a typo there. This is an opportunity for Roth IRAs. That should be not IRS. Roth IRA conversions in 2020. Because of the market volatility, I've had several clients reach out to me and talk to me about doing Roth conversions this year. So the RMDs that can be waived are RMDs from traditional IRAs, from your inherited IRAs, and from other deferred comp plans, 401ks and 403bs. Another thing that is included in the CARES Act are that if you need to take a hardship distribution from a 401k and other retirement plans, you can take hardship distributions up to $100,000. That means it's still taxable, but the tax can be paid over 3 years. There is no penalty on an early distribution. As you probably know, if you take an early distribution from a 401k or other qualified retirement plan, you get hit with a 10% penalty, but this is not the case for this year. The other thing to keep in mind is that you have 3 years to put the money back in your 401k that you took as a hardship distribution without taking into consideration the annual limits that are typically imposed on 401ks and so on. So if you do have to take that distribution from your 401k, just keep in mind good years are coming. We're in a season. We're going to be moving out of the doom and gloom. It feels like it's not going to ever end, but we are going to come out of this. We're going to be stronger. And so you do have that opportunity to put that money back into the retirement accounts that you take out to use. Keep in mind, you also can take loans from 401ks up to the lesser of your account balance or $100,000. And any new or existing 2020 loan repayments, so any of you that have loans currently on your 401ks, those payments can be delayed for a year under the CARES Act. IRAs typically do not permit loans, but if you take a distribution, and you can borrow it for up to 60 days. So finally, oops, let me go back up. Charitable giving. So we've been asking for this for years, and it took a pandemic for them to give it to us. They finally gave us an above the line deduction for charitable contributions up to $300. Nonprofit organizations are suffering. They need your donations. Shameless plug for our local nonprofits. I would name a few, and you all know which ones those are. An above the line deduction basically means this: if you do not itemize your deductions, you get the $300 as a deduction, even if you don't itemize. So the other provision in the CARES Act is that there are no charitable contribution limits for this year. Typically, you can donate up to 60% of your income to qualified organizations. In this year, you can give it all away. So just keep your local nonprofits in mind. They're struggling. They would love to have your donations. Planning opportunity for this year is individuals who are on fixed incomes. You may be able to offset significant taxable income if you're doing Roth conversions, et cetera, with substantial charitable contributions. So just to wrap up my presentation today, I would implore all of you to look for the opportunities during this time. There's a lot of information, a lot of help out there available for small businesses. I love seeing the humanity. I love seeing the families together. And I just want all of you to reflect right now on this will be over. This too shall pass. And what do you want to get out of the time? Do we want to spend our time just being depressed? And it's easy to get in that space, believe me. Or do you want to really think and look back on this 10 years from now, 5 years from now, and think, wow, I did some amazing things during that time that I was home. It's really easy to not have a shower and get dressed, and it's easy to not exercise, but I really encourage you to think about what you want to get accomplished. Think about what you want your life and your business to look like 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. We all have skill sets that we can utilize. Really think about the skills that you have and think about the skills that you can sharpen during this time. There are so many online resources. Take advantage of those. Really think about how you can reorganize your business during this time. Maybe work on your business plan. Think about how you can redefine your offerings and what you can offer online. But most importantly, I really, really encourage you to help your neighbors. Look around and see how you can help. Every morning when I wake up, that's the first thing I think is, what can I do today to help someone? So I'm here to encourage you today. I know this was a lot of information. Any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer. And if I don't have the answer for you, my team and I are here to help find the answer for you. So I hope you got something out of today's presentation. And I just hope you all stay safe and well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel, for this great job. I mean, so much information. If you have time, I'd like to open it up to some of the questions that have come in. If you want to take a look at the chat real quick, we've got a few questions here that maybe you can answer. First of all,
yeah, go ahead and read those off to me, Kathy. I'm having a hard time finding my chat.
Sure, no problem. Let's see, let me go back up. This one is, I dissolved my S Corp in December 2019. I'm now an individual. So when the SBA loan application, they asked for the date of the business established, can I enter the S Corp date or will I have to show my 2018 taxes?
That's a really good question. I would probably use the information from your S Corp, and then I'm sure they'll follow up with more information, wanting more information from you.
Okay. Next question, is there a grace period to pay taxes?
So
I know
if your question is in reference to 2019 taxes, I guess it's not really a grace period, but all taxes for 2019 are due, and this is income tax because there are payroll taxes, et cetera. They are due July 15th. So basically in the past, the April 15th extension deadline is an extension of time to file, not a time to pay. So July 15th is now that new deadline. So July 15th becomes the new extension of time to file, but you do have to pay as of July 15th, 2020.
Okay. Next question, is a franchise hair salon considered a hospitality business eligible for a separate loan for each location?
I would think so. If you would email me directly, my email is on the screen right now, or actually if our website's on the screen right now, you can access my email at our website and I will answer your question directly.
Okay, and another question, if one of my folks does not return and I hire a new employee in their place, does that count towards the loan forgiveness under the payroll provision?
I don't think so. because they want you to retain the employees that you had on payroll, but I will update that. I have the chat here. Okay.
And then question, can you speak to the advance of the SBA up to 10,000?
The advance, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Why does this year present a better opportunity to convert more money to Roth IRA? How does the cancellation of an RMD promote that?
So this year, a lot of people's income will be lower. And so when you do a Roth conversion, so basically you're taking your traditional IRA and you convert some portion of it to a Roth, which then grows tax free. So if your income is lower in 2020, it makes sense to convert it to a Roth and pay the taxes this year when you're in a lower tax bracket.
Okay. The next question was, I think you answered it here. I didn't quite understand the benefit of Roth. Are we able to convert an IRA to Roth without a normal tax?
There will be no, well, when you do a Roth conversion, there's no penalty anyway, but you do pay income tax on a Roth conversion. And so as I mentioned previously, it makes sense to do the conversion in a year when your income is lower.
Okay, and then question, would my 20-year-old get their own $1,200 stimulus check even though we claimed him as a dependent on our 2018 taxes?
No. You will get a $500. Actually, I don't think that you will get $500 for him either, but that is still to be outlined. But my understanding is that dependents, people who are claimed by someone else, will not be getting the payment.
Okay. And that looks like, oh, workers, I have overseas workers I have to pay for. Do they count as payroll?
I am not sure. That is a good question. Potential, I think yes, but email me that question and I will find you the answer.
Okay. The EDD offers an optional disability insurance elective coverage program showing up on the link. Is this an unemployment benefit?
I believe so.
Okay. And then one more question. If I use the S-Corp date of establishment, it means I also have to enter the name of my S-Corp, not as a self-employed individual.
Is this in response to that first question?
Yes, I think it is.
Whoever this is, can you reach out to me directly and I'll set up a phone conversation. I'll go through this with you.
Okay. And everyone, I want you to know that this whole presentation will be available on our website later on this afternoon. So if you want to share the recording with anyone or just use it for the information, please do so. And Rachel has volunteered to answer any questions. If you just email her directly, information is up on the screen. Rachel, thank you so very much for doing this. This was fantastic.
You're welcome. And have a great afternoon, everyone. Please reach out to me with any questions, rachel@elmtax.com. I'm happy, like I said, my team and I are here to research and answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome.